Hi, Tommy. Good morning to you. My name is Nicolette. I am right now in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I'm the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again. Juxtaposition of your very soul. First off, thank you very much for saying yes to be interviewed today and for taking the time. It's 8 a.m. on your side, so I understand it's early in the morning. So I just want to share a bit about why I actually was interested to interviewing you. Love resonance to your journey, particularly in consulting, because I myself came from that background, but I did jump a bit in a few of the industries. So yes, I'm happy to have this conversation with you. So my ritual for my podcast, I'd like to read a bit of your introduction to our listeners today before we get into our conversation. Hey everyone, we have Tommy Ogden here. Tommy is the co-founder of Agility and the Agility Analytics lead of Activera Consulting. He has 20 plus years of consulting and business experience in energy and technology. He has earned certifications as a project management professional, PMP, professional scrum master, and safe practice consultant, SPC. Tommy also holds 2 master degrees in business administration, an MBA and a master of global management, international business and consulting, and has most recently worked for 2 Fortune 20 companies in both the technology and energy industries. Wow, really a consultant through and through. So, Tommy, before we go straight into business, could you share with us what was it like growing up as Tommy Ogden?
So I'm in Houston, Texas currently, and that's actually where I was born and raised. And it's becoming more and more rare to find people who have actually been born here and raised here as opposed to move here for, a job or something. So I grew up in Houston. I actually went to high school here, but then went to college in a different state, and I majored in Spanish.
Buenos dias.
Yeah, gracias. So I majored in Spanish, but I actually took Portuguese and French, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Consulting wasn't even a thing in my mind at that time. I was really just trying to follow my passions. So I did, in college, I did languages, I played rugby, and I was in theater. So I was sort of all over the place from, lots of different things, just trying to find what I liked. But that actually served me well in the consulting world, because as you mentioned in the intro there, Nicolette, I ended up getting a master's degree in international business. And as part of that, right, I had to pass a language test in order to graduate. And I had to do some study abroad programs in South America. And eventually, when I became a consultant, I actually took over the Kazakhstan business that we had. And so I was traveling to and from Kazakhstan every quarter and trying to manage that business. And so my background actually, even though I didn't think it would help me, it actually ended up being advantageous. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, tell us, Tommy, what makes a good consultant?
Yeah. My gosh. So it's a very wide-ranging question, but I'm hoping I have a succinct answer for you. There's actually a book. It's called The Trusted Advisor, and it's very popular in the consulting world. I believe Meister is the one who wrote it. So if you're looking for it, Trusted Advisor by Meister. Now, in that book, he actually comes up with a formula for being a trusted advisor. And I would say that's the pinnacle of consulting, right? If you can attain trusted advisor status with your client, then you have successfully attained good consultant level. So what that formula says is just like any formula, there's a numerator and there's a denominator. The numerator is made up of 3 things. It's credibility. So are you a subject matter expert? Do you know a lot about a topic, right? If I'm helping a client migrate to the cloud, let's say, right? Can I talk about on-premise versus public cloud versus private cloud and the hybrid nature of the footprint and cloud bursting and whatever else exists in that realm? Am I credible in that space? That would make a good consultant. The second component of the numerator is reliability. Okay, so do you do what you say you're going to do? Do you deliver on time? Do you consistently deliver with high quality? That can also be the mark of a good consultant. You're reliable. And then the last part of the numerator is called intimacy. Now, intimacy may sound odd from a consulting perspective, but it's really getting to the heart of your client. And that's both personally and professionally. It's not saying you have to be best friends with them, right? But generally understanding their context in a professional setting. What are their career aspirations, right? How are they trying to provide for their family? How can you really understand them at a deeper level so that you can provide top-notch support for them? And so for that formula and those top three, you're really trying to increase those numbers, right? You want to be very credible, you want to be very reliable, and you want to have good intimacy with your client.
Mm-hmm.
Now that brings us to the denominator, which
has
in this
to be
case,
the smallest possible.
Yeah,
then.
It should be. You're exactly right. Right. Your consulting background's coming back. Yes, you're right. The denominator should be
Oh my
super
God,
tiny.
memory's flooding. Woo, some good and bad memories.
Yes, I'm right there with you.
Big Four, right? Which one?
Well, I was at Accenture for 4 years, so I don't know. It's tier 2.
Right.
But...
I was with EY for 4 years as well. So high five.
Consulting high five, yes.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we talked about credibility, reliability, intimacy. You're right. That denominator should be as small as possible. And in Meister's book, he talks about that denominator being self-orientation. So if you're concerned about yourself and how much can I sell and how can I look good and how can I do better? Can I cross-sell? Can I upsell? Make myself the star of the room. If you have a really high self-orientation, then that brings your entire formula score down. The credibility, reliability, and intimacy don't matter as much. And so to be a good consultant, going back to your original question, right, you want to maximize those things in the numerator and then not focus on yourself so that you've made that denominator as tiny as possible. And if you can do those 4 things effectively, then again, I think you are a good consultant.
But it's so difficult to not put that self-orientation out there first. I remember my days, partners were, the pipeline, it's like there and okay, we got to secure this because this is a key account and there's an RFP coming up. Oh, we're number 1 or number 2. And there are, like you said, cross-selling, upselling. But so how, through your experience, how do you ensure that the self-orientation is really, really small and of course, credibility, reliability, and the third one was
intimacy.
Intimacy. So intimacy is, I say, it's your relationship with the client, right? And really understanding, going to the heart of what they're trying to solve. Reliability means, okay, you've secured the job and then track records. You've shown that you manage and you consistently maybe exceed or reach their expectation.
Sure.
And reliability, the first one was
credibility.
Yep. That comes with your, again, subject matter expert and also the experience, right?
Absolutely.
So I joined a Big Four when I was, I think, 28. So prior to that, I was a consultant, but not in the space of debt restructuring. Also, in a sense, debt consultant. So, but an associate level. So it's really, I was like the small, the really small one in the room. But oftentimes, consultants are looked at, a fresh grad coming out of college or universities, Ivy League, to be at the top of their game. And to be honest, a lot of them are burned out, right? So I don't know, what is your view on that?
Yeah, in fact, that's a lot of what I see coming through our door. So though I did spend some time at Accenture, the majority of my consulting experience and background has been in boutique management consulting firms. Right. So less than 100 people kind of firms. And the large majority, I would say, of people who were hiring are in exactly the position you just described, where they get out of school, they go into a big firm. Especially pre-COVID, they're flying out Sunday night, they're returning Thursday night, right?
Pitching
that's their every week. And some people love it, and I think even the people that love it can get burned out just because that is a not very stable sort of lifestyle. And so what you see are people who want to migrate away from that and into a smaller firm that's maybe local, that has local clients, where they can sort of settle down, maybe start a family. I mean, different people have different goals, but I think that burned out thing that you're describing is real. And so I would suggest that you need to know yourself and be self-aware of where you are in your life and what do you want to get out of it, right? If I were a fresh grad out of college, it wouldn't matter to me so much the travel schedule.
Yeah.
A single guy getting out there flying all over the world. That's
Yeah.
exciting. That's exciting.
Yep.
But let me tell
Yep.
you something, Nicola. So I actually didn't join Accenture by choice. The company I was with, we were acquired.
Was required. Okay.
By Accenture, right? And I very distinctly remember my wife, after I came home and told her, hey, we were bought. The first thing she said was, if they make you travel every week, you're going to quit or we're going to get a divorce. And I said,
so of course, did you quit?
Well, they didn't make me travel. They didn't make me travel.
Okay, cool. Okay.
No, I guess luckily, since I'm in Houston, Texas, the energy capital of the world, and I deal with mostly energy clients, the large majority of our clients have a presence in Houston. And so it doesn't mandate travel from that perspective. The Kazakhstan business that I took over that I previously mentioned, that was by choice because I wanted to use my international business degree. And I really like getting involved in other cultures and different languages and things like that. And so that was a by choice, not a mandate. I don't think I would like that Sunday to Thursday, I can't handle that.
And the all-nighters.
Yeah.
In fact,
checking in. I have three kids, and the oldest one is named Nicolette.
No way!
Yeah.
No, Nicolette?
Seriously.
With the same spelling?
It has two L's.
Right.
Ours does. No, two T's, two L's. Because Colette is like a family name from my wife's side. And so we decided to do something a little bit different, but it's kind of like Colette, but with, the Nicolette. So when we first started engaging with each other, like, hey,
there's
Nicolette.
An affinity. Thank you. Oh, that made my day.
I love that name. Love it.
Oh, thank you so much. Right, Tommy. So I know we touched a little bit about how you got into consulting, but maybe you can share with us like exactly how you got into consulting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so I have done post-college a lot of different things trying to find really what my passion was. With a Spanish degree, or what can you really do? I mean, maybe be a teacher, maybe join the UN. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Maybe be a translator, right? But I didn't really want to go down that path. So I did a lot of different things. I tried to be an investment advisor representative, to sell mutual funds. I became a financial analyst for a little while for a heating and air conditioning manufacturer. And I just was trying different things out. I went back to school for 6 months to get my certified financial planner certificate.
CFP.
And I quit.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. CFP. And I quit halfway through because I realized it's not my thing, but I don't know what my thing is, but I know that's not it. And so what I decided to do was go back to school, right? I had to go back and get a business degree and figure out that passion. And so what I did was I did a dual degree program. I got my MBA from the University of Houston here locally, and then I went out to Phoenix, Arizona to get my international business degree from Thunderbird, which is an international business school. And I remember the very first semester of business school, they had you write an essay, right? And the whole point of the essay was go out, interview people in the business world that have a job that you would like in 10 years and ask them questions and get a better sense of what it's like, and then write an essay on why you want to do that. So in the very first semester of business school, it really challenges you to think forward thinking about what you want to do, what you want to be. And so I had LinkedIn at the time, even though it was, early days. And I remember going through and finding some people I went to high school with, and one of them was already a senior manager or director level at Boston Consulting Group.
BC, wow.
Yeah, BCG, exactly. Yeah, and we graduated at the same time, right? And I'm just trying to think about getting into consulting. But he was always that guy. Like, he was the valedictorian, and he was like the star on the football team, and he was like, he had it all. So good for him. But I reached out to him, and I learned about all of the different types of projects he was working on, and the variability and the interesting problem solving and the teaming aspects. And it really piqued my interest because I'd never heard of consulting prior to going back to school. And after I did a little bit more diving into that realm, I realized, my gosh, this is potentially what I want to do. This could be my passion. And so I poured everything into it. I got my consulting certificate as part of the MBA. You can do like a sub-specialization education, and I did it in
Oh,
consulting. I took consulting classes where not only did you learn about consulting, but you also did some pro bono consulting for companies in the community that would go to the university requesting MBA students to solve particular problems. And I did that both at
right.
University of Houston and at Thunderbird. And by the time I graduated, I had some experience in actually doing it. I co-founded the consulting club at University of Houston. I was on the leadership team at Thunderbird. I mean, I was all in, right?
Mm.
And so as soon as I got out of school, immediately went into a boutique firm. I actually applied to Accenture when I graduated and did not get in. So, yeah, there you go.
But the universe always has a way.
Yeah, I made it back around.
Came full circle. Yeah.
That was really my journey on how I got into it.
Right. But coming back to what you said that you went and asked your friend,
Hmm.
I think that's humility there to actually ask
Sure.
him.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, absolutely.
somebody that's already there and then you're still here. I mean, somebody that's still trying to grasp what am I going to do for my career or
Right.
yeah, into the future.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
graduated the same year. I mean, it's like we kind of started from the same
Exactly.
path, and now he has a job that I want in 10 years. It's
Exactly.
like, okay, well, where am I?
And yeah, come think of it, it's okay. Why am I resonating? It's because when I joined, I also went into a boutique firm, which is the debt restructuring firm.
Mhm.
And so I went in as an associate. So a guy that was older, 2 years older, he joined as an intern. So I joined and then he was converted into an associate as well. And then he carried on. So I stayed for 4 years. He stayed longer. So I felt like I wanted to try something else. So I left and I went to a commercial engineering firm. It was a whole new world for me. And I said, okay, I stayed for 1 year because that the first 4 years, I was really treated like, I don't know, the golden associate. So I thought like, oh, this is how it's gonna be when I go outside. And then reality hit. No. So 1 year. And then he stayed on. And then after that, I didn't like it. So I reached out as well. I said, I don't know what I want to do. So I went into PMO, project management.
Yeah.
A friend, an ex-colleague, which is from the engineering firm, but he had left, but he was already in EY. So the team was looking for somebody. So I handed in my resume and then I joined and all those things. And then I said, okay, this is pretty good. So PMO for 3 until I think stayed about 7 years. So, and then I didn't COVID, burnout, EY, and I had my own personal trauma. I got a divorce 20. So again, it was like double whammy. So, and then he joined EY as well, 20, I think 20, so a year after. Right now, I am leaving. Now I'm in a new commercial firm, a shared service. Again, something new. But I've never I didn't know what I wanted to do. But right now, he's already an associate director. So
Sure.
it's like so it's like, and right now as we're speaking, I have actually left my 9 to 5 and I'm starting my own therapy practice and coaching. And it's like, because I felt that this is where I want to be of service, because I think in consulting, I think the essence of it is to be of service, right? So, and I think the time in Big Four sort of gave me a bad light, and I wanted to be in the same space of serving people. So I guess how I'm trying to connect the dots here is that I used to envy him. Yeah. But right now it's like, this is what he wants to do and I want to do a different thing. And that's all right, and I finally gotten my enthusiasm for life. I never really understood how people can stay, but I really didn't understand it then, but now I understood it. Like, you love what you do, and it's okay if you really find your passion 10 years after. That's fine. Yeah.
On their own timeline.
Exactly.
And I've also felt that same jealousy feeling, right? So I'll give you one quick example. When we were acquired by Accenture, as I mentioned, there were a number of us that were at a certain level, like a senior manager level. Some people left immediately because they knew they didn't want to be a part of Accenture. Some people stuck around for a little while and then left. But the folks that stayed, there were, I would say, 10 of us at that level. Okay. And out of the 10 of us, only one person got promoted at the end of those 4 years.
4 years. No promotion. Wow.
Yeah. So that jealousy does creep in. It's like, hey, why wasn't I the promoted one? Or, what did this person do that was different? And, what's the situation there? And you do sort of feel that jealousy, but But I came to a very similar realization, Nicolette, as you did, is that I think one of the reasons why was, maybe there were other reasons around performance or, or sales numbers, et cetera. But
Yeah.
I,
Other
I feel like
metrics.
yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
At a consulting firm, there's tons. But I think one of the reasons was I came to the realization that's not really what I wanted to do. And I kind of had a soul searching year of I got
Yes.
25 years approximately left in my career. Do I want to pound the pavement as an Accenture company man and
Mm,
really push for these promotions and do that? Do I want to go into industry? Like you switch from
yeah.
consulting over into, right? Do I want to go work for maybe an oil and gas client that I've
Mm.
actually worked for in the past? Do I want to go off by myself and be a solopreneur and an independent contributor and try and go that route? Or do I like that boutique management consulting sort of feel? And after a lot of introspection, I realized that the time that I had at the previous firm before we were acquired was some of the most fulfilling time of
Yeah.
my life, right? And so going
Yeah.
back into a situation like that, and this time as a co-founder and being an entrepreneur on top of it for this new firm that we've started, it was too enticing to pass up. And
To
it
pass. Yeah.
really does provide that excitement when I wake up in the morning and the passion and the things that
Yeah.
I was missing at that bigger
Yeah.
firm. And so, the
Exactly.
jealousy has gone away now. And I realized that I think I just wasn't meant for that path.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. I love that. I love that for you. Because
Sure.
I right now like practice a new coaching and therapy is something again psychology,
Hmm.
and talking to people is podcasting is something that I say okay, because I was also on my soul searching journey, so I said I cannot be the only one in this right now, so I want to
Hmm.
hear and see what do they have to say. And yeah, I love it. So yes. So Tommy, how can frameworks help advance your career?
So we just
Mm-hmm.
talked about passions, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the passions I have is frameworks, and I'm going to tell you why. I know since we were getting a little vulnerable around the jealousy feeling, there's another vulnerable feeling that I've felt coming out of business school, which was like imposter syndrome. If you've heard of it, right?
Mm,
It's where you feel
yes.
like
And that is why my podcast is
exactly.
was created based on that.
So, coming out of business school, one of my biggest fears was I've just gone through all this education. I've taken courses in finance and accounting and supply chain and consulting and other things. But I get out, I go work for a company, I get put on a client site day one, and they approach me with a problem that they're trying to solve. And I just kind of deer in headlights freeze, like, don't know what to do. I'm not
Should I
sure
go
how
to
to,
my yeah,
yeah.
the
Like, what do
partner,
I
or does it solve it?
Exactly. Like I was just, I wouldn't say I was fully paralyzed by this, but it was certainly a concern of mine of how am I going to add value? How am I going to provide
Yeah.
something to this client that they don't already have? And so it took me a while to really understand what I was doing to solve problems. But at the end of the day, it was all about doing research, which any good consultant will do, right? If they don't understand something, but doing research and
Desktop research. Damn.
right, the bane of consulting.
Yes, the
But
bane.
yeah, but you have to do it. I mean, when you're rolling on to a new
Mm.
situation, you've got to figure, you've got a lot of, they call it drinking from a fire hose, right? Of taking in all of this information and trying to parse it out and make sense of it. Um, and so what I realized I was doing was I was trying to take in all of that information, and then I was trying to synthesize it and logically structure an approach to that problem. And that what I found is that frameworks allow you to do that. Right. And you learn frameworks in business school, but it's usually like, oh, a SWOT analysis. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are their opportunities? What are their threats? That's good in certain instances, but you can't just blindly apply a SWOT analysis to every single problem like a cookie cutter approach. There
Right.
are dozens and dozens and dozens of frameworks out there for lots and lots of different situations. And in doing my research, I've realized that if I'm approached with a specific type of problem, I can usually choose from a set of 2 or 3 frameworks and use those to not start from scratch, right? I'm not putting a cookie cookie cutter approach like a SWOT analysis, but I'm also not reinventing the wheel, right? And that framework can be applied to a problem, but then you customize it. You make it fit for purpose and you tailor it to that client's problem. So let me give you a quick example. There's one, it's called a transformation map, which doesn't really mean anything to anybody else outside of consulting probably. But what I like to call it is the from here to there framework. Okay. So if
As
you're
is to
ever
be.
Yes, as is to be, the delta, the change, right? So if you're ever in a situation where a client approaches you and says, hey, we're here and we want to get there, you talked about PMO, right? I've used this framework before at PMO maturity discussions, right? Our PMO is this mature, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, we're at a 3, okay? We want to get to a 7. We don't need to be at a 10, but we want to get to a 7 to feel like we're really mature. How are we going to fill that gap? Using a framework, the from here to there framework, or that transformation map framework, you can be very clear and logically structure an approach to answering that question. And so after being in consulting now for more than a decade, I realized that what I was doing was doing that. I was essentially being approached with problems and I was finding these frameworks that matched to the problem they were trying to solve, and then utilizing those to logically structure that approach, right? And I found the response to be two-sided. One, personally, I felt validated. That imposter syndrome went away because I was bringing something sort of new to the table and a way to lens through which they can visualize this problem. And then from the client side, they were sort of wowed that, oh my gosh, I've never seen it put in this frame before, and this really makes a lot of sense. And they can go and walk it around to different people and everybody immediately understands what they're trying to accomplish. And so what I've done is I've essentially gathered up an inventory of frameworks that I utilize across different client situations. And it's really helped with differentiation and logical problem solving approaches.
Wow. I was just thinking about, because this is part of your product of your research, right? You've done this over the last decade or something, or more than that even. So are you thinking of sharing that with the people, with the
Absolutely.
masses? And you have your own, I don't know, PMO school module or something, framework.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I have gone back to the universities, both the University of Houston and Thunderbird, and have given talks on frameworks and provided frameworks to some of the students to help them out so that they can get over the position that I felt I was in early on in their careers. And if you do go to our website, the Active Eric, we've got a whole page dedicated to frameworks. And I've actually put together a video series for that. So yeah, I'm trying to get that content out there and find a medium through which that can be disseminated. So TBD on that.
Brilliant. I must come up with my own framework for my clients in the coaching. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to work on that after this. All right. So, Tommy, what are the differences between large and small consulting firms?
Yeah, we've talked about a couple of them already, but I would say my time at Accenture was positive, right? I mean, I learned a lot, worked with a lot of really good people, and you could say a similar thing about a boutique firm. But there are a couple of differences that I personally didn't find that appealing. One of which is typically a large firm is like a public company. So there's a lot of hierarchy, there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of red tape and political jostling, and you don't get that as much with a smaller firm. It's a much flatter hierarchy. Right now, I've come in as a co-founder of this new one, but at the old firm that was acquired, I was an employee, but I had the managing partner's phone number. I would text them and they would help me out, and they would help answer questions or even roll up their sleeves and get involved. It doesn't really work that way at a large company of any type. Right. And I remember at Accenture being told no a lot of times, where in a smaller firm, I would have been told yes. I'll give you one example of that. I told you I like languages, right? Spanish, Portuguese. So Accenture's in some odd countries. I don't even know the number now. They have 70,000+ people, right? So they're all over the world. And I wanted to get involved in some of our energy business in South America because, I liked that aspect. I liked the culture. The client that I was working with had a business unit down down there. So I wanted to get involved, and I was essentially told no, like that doesn't make sense for you. You shouldn't do that. It's not going to help your career, right? Because if you do end up selling business down there, it's not going to count because
Oh,
you're in the North America region, and
right. Yeah,
any
again,
sale, right?
what was the
Orientation,
denominator? Yeah,
self-orientation.
self-orientation. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
And so I don't like being told no like that. So that's just one example of like at a larger firm, you're maybe a little bit more constrained. So yeah, so that's one example. Another one might be a difference is that at a smaller firm, you've got a lot more visibility because, and there's pros and cons with that, right? Like the things that you do are talked about and they matter, but also they can be under a microscope a little bit with
Yes.
everybody. So that's at a smaller firm, but you also get engagement and interaction face to face with the client, and sometimes director or C-suite level clients, and that's a positive thing. At a bigger firm, you can sometimes just be a cog, right, in a wheel. I think you mentioned that a little bit in your past as well. It's like, let's say, Accenture's really good at big SAP or ERP implementations, let's say.
Yeah.
So you could end up learning a module of SAP, let's say, and then that's all you know. And they sell this big $100 million implementation and they pull you in and you're on a team of 50 people and you're just kind of like working the back end module of this one thing. You never talk to the client. Right? It's always one or two levels removed.
Yeah.
So, there's that can happen. Whereas that wouldn't happen at like a boutique firm at all. You would definitely be getting more face time. So it's just things like that. There's differences, and some people love the big firms. They spend their entire careers there. And they go up the ranks and they love it. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to them. But that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Finding your own passion and finding your own path and what makes you happy. And in my case, it wasn't that. But there are positive things.
Your happiness is now Activera Consulting.
Correct.
Right. So why did you decide to start your company? I guess it's because of the differences that you just mentioned.
Yeah. It was, so I just missed that boutique firm. I mentioned flat hierarchy. Well, that concept of building a community and the camaraderie across a group of folks like that. Also, as a co-founder, one of the things that I really like about that is building and reinforcing a culture, right? And you have a bit more of an impact on that culture as a co-owner, co-founder. And I really like that aspect of it, sort of building something from the ground up that can support people, not only like our clients that we're supporting, but also the people who are joining our firm and helping them with their own personal and professional growth. That's something that I value and couldn't get as much of at a larger firm.
Thank you. So what are you excited about and working on at the moment?
Gosh, there's so much to be excited about. One of the negatives I would say about working at a small firm, especially like a co-founded one, is you have to be okay with, and in my case I am, but having your fingers in lots of different pies. Like I'm doing recruiting, I'm doing sales and business development, I'm doing marketing strategy, I'm also on client sites, right? So I have deliverables for them, and it's just, it's sort of a never-ending
a consultant
effort.
Through and through. Because when you're in the boutique firm, you're exactly doing all those things, and it's wow, but you love doing it. So
I do. I'm not that kind of person. We talked about like knowing yourself. If you give me a problem and say go off by yourself in a room for 2 days and just figure it out and then become a subject matter expert and go really, really deep into a single topic, I will not perform well, right? I just won't do it.
Same.
I need other people to interact with and to talk things through and
bounce ideas.
The soundboarding concept, right? Just like, hey, what about that? What about this? So
the war room.
Yes. So I love that aspect of it. And you can't, what is that phrase, right? Where if, I forget who said it, to teach a fish to climb a tree, like they'll never be.
Yeah, it'll think that it's stupid for its lifetime. Something like that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so it's the same thing. If you try to put me in a room and solve a problem, I mean, I just won't do it well. I know that about myself. Yeah. And so being able to have that self-awareness, I think that took me a long time to figure out, but at least I've somewhat arrived.
Okay. Thank you for that. Tommy. So a question revolving around self-worth. So question for you. So in your opinion, what role do societal expectations and external validation play in shaping our self-worth? How can we break free from these influences and find our intrinsic value? But
Heavy
somehow
question.
touching to what we've already mentioned just now.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah.
you're right. You're right. You're right. And I think, but doing it is very difficult. And I don't think there's anybody who wakes up every day and is, oh, I'm not going to care about what anyone says or
Yes.
what anyone thinks, or it doesn't happen. You can have that as a goal, but just as part of being animals in a society, like we've got those influences, and you get it, bombarded, not only through your friends and your family and your colleagues and your peers, but then through media and social media. It's just frustrating, honestly, how much expectation comes through those channels, and even on a subconscious level, right? Those things are affecting your internal conversation. So
Yeah.
I would say it's a never-ending journey with no destination, and you can just progress, right? Try to progress on a day over day, week over week, month over month basis, and try to realize when it's happening, right? Like we talked about the jealousy aspect of that. Well, that's because they got promoted, and that's something that I wanted, was to get promoted, right? It's not just for the title, right? Or the extra money or whatever. It's just because I have an own personal aspiration, and my friends and family sort of expect me to excel and get better. And I have that of myself as well. So I would say trying to do some longer term goal planning on what really matters to you, and understanding the milestones along that journey and celebrating those as you hit them, and focusing on your own self as opposed to what everybody else thinks or where you should be in your career at this time. And I'll give you one quick story going back to my wife. I was in the car with her the other day, and something about what you just described was mentioned, because we saw somebody drive by in like a really expensive car, right? And I said, my gosh, we could never afford that car. Right? Like that's just not part of our ability, and I don't think it ever will be, right? And I'm never going to be to that level. How do they do that? And something she said really struck me, which was, you don't know their situation, right? They could have a very focused passion for cars. They might live in a one-person apartment, like a 300
that is
square
so
foot
true.
apartment,
Yeah.
and they don't have, a job that they like. They don't have family or whatever it is, but they really love cars, and that is their passion, and that's the thing that they value. Right. And they could have poured everything into that. And she said, hey, Tommy, if you didn't spend as much money on the kids, or if we downsized our house, or if you gave up the job you have to get more money at a job that you hate, you could probably afford that car, right? If you put everything into it, you could do that. But you need to figure out what you value and put your time and your effort and your money into those things, and not worry so much about what other people value. Because if you do that, you're going to end up unhappy with a fancy car, and nobody wants that.
And on the flip side of it, they could be very happy, and even though they're staying in a one-bedroom apartment, they're happy because the thing that they value is that car.
Yeah, and they've got it.
Yeah, and they've got it, exactly.
Absolutely.
And it's really about understanding and being just self-aware and not judgmental towards other people. Like somebody could be let's say a senior director, but he or she dresses, I don't know, just some simple dressing, but
sweatpants.
Sweatpants. But he or she is so dedicated in the job that they're doing. I'm looking at it at a positive light, right? Or they could be miserable because they're there and they're miserable, but they have the fanciest thing on them. It's really how do I say this? It's a paradox almost, but it's really interesting, and to be able to observe that without judgment is pure bliss, I guess. The way I see it. I used to think of it that way. Yes, and that is another challenge. Exactly. Whew. Right. So Tommy, what is your heart's greatest wish?
Heart's greatest wish. So I was thinking about that concept the other day as it relates to what legacy I want to leave behind.
That is actually my last question.
Oh, hey, well, sorry, I'm
You
jumping
touch
ahead
it
here.
first.
Well, we can touch on both because I think
Yeah.
that they're intertwined for sure, especially as you start getting older, right? And you
Mm.
start thinking, well, gosh, we're all mortal and, my
Yes.
time's going to come
Yes.
and,
Exactly.
what have I left behind?
Mm,
And not
mm,
what other
mm.
people view, right? Not this, the expectations you were talking about, but personally, will I be happy with that legacy? And
Mm-hmm.
the greatest wish I have, I think, is that I leave behind a legacy of fulfillment.
Oh,
That was the word that
that was a
came
good
to my
one.
mind. And let me explain it a little bit more. It's fulfillment not only for myself, right, which only I'm responsible for, but as a father of Nicolette and my other two
I like that. I will
children,
remember this.
right, I want them to be able to have fulfillment in their lives and understand that they don't have to live up to all of those other people's expectations, that they need to understand their strengths and find their passions. And, that's a way for them to be fulfilled and for me to be able to pass that lesson along to them. So that's one aspect of fulfillment. Another one is around this company, Activera, you're talking about. And we touched on it earlier, creating that culture, creating a community where we can bring people into the community and build them up. Not only
Yeah.
professionally, right, with sponsoring their certifications, getting them promotions, putting them on interesting work where they can make an impact to society and to clients, but also on a personal level so that they can feel fulfilled, that they're meeting their own aspirations. That's another sector of fulfillment. And then lastly, I feel like for my clients, honestly, how can we help them professionally and then also personally? Can we make their project very successful for them? Not getting any credit for us, but just making them look good so that they can raise up in their profession and get to the next level and meet their career and personal aspirations, right? And find whatever fulfillment they have within that. And so that legacy of fulfillment is my greatest wish. And it shows up in lots of different facets of my life, right? Personally, family, company as an entrepreneur, and then client sort of external facing. And I think if I could do all of those things effectively and juggle them, which it's a lot of balls in the air,
Yeah.
then I would feel fulfilled. And so that's really my greatest wish and hopefully the legacy I can leave behind.
Wow, thank you for being candid. I appreciate that. So, do you have a mantra that you live by?
So this goes back to remember I told you there was that essay that we had to write
Ah,
in
yes.
business
Yes.
school. So just after that, right after we've sort of all kind of said, okay, here's where we want to be in 10 years, the very next thing that we worked on was your own personal brand. Okay, so what do you want to be
Ooh.
known for? What do you want to be known as? Right? What resonates with you? And so they made you think about, are you going to be that credible subject matter expert and deep dive into a topic and know it really well? Are you going to
Mm.
be a relationship person who goes out and does a lot of business development and sales and that sort of thing? Do you want to be known for that? Do you want to be the reliable, dedicated, committed person? The phrase that resonated most with me, and I don't know if they have it in Kuala Lumpur or the same ad. I'm sure State Farm Insurance, right? It's an insurance company that
Mm-hmm.
they've got
I've heard
in
of
the
it, but yeah.
yeah, so they have a mantra or they have like their jingle that they have in all their ads, which is, sorry, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. And that's really the thing that I resonated with. Everybody went through school and we all had lab partner or multiple lab
Mm-hmm.
partners, right? Where we had to work on a
Yeah.
team to deliver something. Well,
Yes.
you always had that lab partner that was
That did not.
did nothing, right? Everybody experienced
Yes.
that. Maybe people listening were that lab partner, I'm not sure, but everybody's experienced that, right? And I never wanted to be that bad lab partner. I wanted to be the lab partner that was good, that did the research, that, that
That was the proactive one.
yeah, and actually did all the helped with their part of the deliverables and the presentation. And I don't know if that stems from the experience and history I have in organized sports or not. I mentioned to you I played rugby before. I ended up playing for about
Yeah.
15 years.
Wow.
And I think, the whole concept of working as a team together and progressing the ball or the lab report or the
Yeah.
problem the client has, progressing that thing
Exactly.
down the field, right?
Yeah.
That was always what I wanted to do from a brand perspective, was be a good neighbor, be a good lab partner, be a good teammate to help move things down the field. And we talked about being humble and that low self-orientation earlier. I've met people that are so high level managing director that they're sort of below doing certain tasks. I'm not like that. I will mop the floor if that's what the team needs, right? If there's a
I
spill and there's
will
a
make
mop
the
there.
coffee. I
Yeah.
will do the tea, make the tea for
Absolutely.
them.
Absolutely. There's no reason why you shouldn't be willing and open to do that if that's what the team needs, right? And however I feel like I can help the team, that's the brand that I want to have.
Wow, there's nothing more to add to that. Thank you. So, is there anything that keeps you up at night, or do you sleep well?
I sleep fine. I get up every morning at 5 a.m. to walk on the treadmill. And while I walk on the treadmill, I play video games at the same time because
So that distracts you from that walking, that reaching that certain metric.
Honestly, it goes by so fast when you're playing video games, but those are two things that I don't have time for like in my normal life because I've got kids, and once they're up, I got to get them out for school, and then I have to work, and then when I'm done with work, I have to deal with the kids again, and by that time, you got to go to bed. So I've managed to find some balance and incorporate those two things that I enjoy doing at the same time before the family wakes up. I don't have a problem falling asleep at night because I'm exhausted. But that's the literal falling asleep. I think you were talking more figuratively around, what keeps
goes
me up
on.
at night. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, I try not to focus too much on things that I can't control. You could say, oh, hey, are we going into a recession? What about global conflict? What about oil and gas prices?
Yeah.
That's something that my clients are paying attention to.
Yeah.
Those things are just outside of my sphere of control. And so I try not to worry about them too much. My wife, I've brought her up a couple times, and she will agree with this statement, but she's a worrier. She will worry about things. Reiterating to her is worrying is a down payment on a problem you may not have, right? Sounds like you've heard that before. And
yes.
I try to bring that up. It's very personal dependent, but I try to have that mindset. In fact, to bring around another story, I remember my mom telling me growing up that she was up late one night and she was worried about something that was going to happen the next day at school. And she came out of her room to get a glass of water or something. Yeah. Well, her dad was still awake, and he said, hey, what's wrong? Why are you still up? And she said, Dad, I'm really worried about this thing tomorrow. And he said, look, can you do anything about it right now? Right? If the answer is no, go to bed and figure it out tomorrow. If the answer is yes, then stay up and do that thing, right? Get it done, whatever you think you can do to prepare better for this thing. And those are really the two choices you have, right? If you're up at night worried about something, can you do anything about it? If not, then try to calm the mind and go to bed. If you can, then actually just go do that thing. And then you'll feel better about it regardless, right? Because either you're better prepared or you've calmed your mind.
Good night's rest.
Yeah. So nothing really keeps me up at night, honestly. I handle a lot of problems during the day. I feel like I'm a very tactical person. So if something comes my way, I deal with it, but I don't think too long term. Maybe that's not something a good consultant should ever say. Not to say I could do.
The key here is balance.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
You can think long term, you can anticipate, but you let go of the outcome.
Right. And you act more tactically.
Exactly. Implement, execute. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Last question, Tommy. If you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
Need a quote right now, huh?
Yeah, it's your legacy. So it will be Tommy Ogden 22.
So it's something. I'm actually not religious at all, but my wife is, and I've sort of grown up within the Christian religion, Catholic to be specific. And one of the things that I think is absolutely key for humanity is taken from that golden rule, right? Treat others as you would have them treat you, right? And I don't subscribe to the rest of the religious aspects, but that is at the very base level. I think if people acted in the mindset, that a lot of the challenges that we have would not exist. right? I try to teach my children that concept as well, and I try to leverage it day to day. I think that along with that goes empathy, the humbleness, and that reduction of self-orientation that we talked about before. If you're treating other people like you want to be treated, then those things go away. That self-orientation is gone because you're reacting to people in the world in a way that is extremely positive, that's caring for them, that's trying to be understanding, that's wanting to help, be that good neighbor, be that good lab partner, be that good teammate, because that's what you want from other people, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if I could have something etched on my tombstone, maybe I'd phrase it a little bit differently than the golden rule, but that concept is absolutely at the core of how I try to interact with folks on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable, honest, candid. And I think that perfectly wraps up our conversation today. Thank
I really
you so
appreciate
much,
it,
Tommy.
Nicolette. Thank you. It's challenging calling you Nicolette, not thinking of my daughter.
Not thinking about your daughter. Well, I will remember this episode. So when this airs, I will be sure to tag you.
Perfect.
I will connect with you via your social media. And thank you again. You're doing great work, and I think the world appreciates that. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicolette. Thanks for having me on.
And your wife is a very wise lady, the way she put it about the car. Yeah.
Oh yeah, she is. I'd never thought about it from that angle before, so I think she certainly got some insight that I could use.
All right. Thank you so much, Tommy. You have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, Nicolette. You too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Take care.